Hello, my name is Alistair Cormack. I'm the specification lead for English literature at Hills Road, and I'm going to be taking you through a PowerPoint, just giving you some idea about what it's like to study English literature, and in particular what it's like to study English literature at Hills. Okay, well, first question, why study English? Why study English literature and why study it at Hills? I think the most important thing is that, well, there's a sort of myth, I think, that reading books is fun, but studying books is somehow sort of analytical and dry and dusty, but that's not the case. English literature students have more fun. So it's really important to know that English literature is creative, it's intellectually stimulating, we have a very supportive department, but also English lessons are a lot of fun. The learning is very engaged, it's very dynamic, and it's a place where people really feel that they develop. So English literature is a place where you learn about really challenging concepts. You might feel that you're interested in philosophy, maybe in politics, maybe in religion and spirituality, maybe you're interested in psychoanalysis and psychology. All of these things go into the study of literature, as well as, of course, the detailed response and enjoyment of the technical details of literature, the imagery and the poetic devices and all of the effects that go to make a great work of literature. In lessons, you will constantly be engaging in debates. You'll be thinking about the different ways to approach texts, what you feel about them, backing up your ideas. You'll be thinking independently. You'll be questioning your own assumptions and questioning other people's assumptions. So, for instance, at the moment, we've just started our work on the coursework, and we're studying Small Island by Andrea Levy, and we're thinking about all of the assumptions about the Second World War history and the history of immigration that we might assume, but all of these things have been put into question by this novel. I suppose the point that raises, and the point that we might make from thinking about all of those things, is that a really great book changes the world that it came into. And that can't happen without readers of books. So books change the world and readers change the world. And English literature is about addressing all of the ideologies that have underpinned the world and sifting through them and assessing them and thinking about them and responding to them creatively. So I'm just going to hand over to my three student helpers. So that's Lilla, Hero and Ellie. Would you like to add anything about your experience of English at Hills? What have you enjoyed about it?
I mean, it's just adding on to what you've said, but I think part of it being supported as well as challenging is from the debates in class, you think things from what other people have said, you realise things about the text that you wouldn't have ever realised from doing it yourself. I mean, you could read a book like 500 times and not realise stuff that other people realise. And so it's the kind of like collaboration and everyone adding into it, and that you kind of reach like far more ideas than you would get from just reading it.
Yeah, we definitely bounce off each other a lot, and that's how we sort of create our own collective ideas, but also our individual ideas come from each other. And also I think going into English, I didn't realise how philosophical it would be, and just how much it would actually, I guess, simple book can make you think, or just a verse in a poem makes you think so much about the world around you. And it's, yeah, I think the philosophical side of things and also like the psychological side is really, really interesting.
Adding to that, Ellie, I wonder if you could tell me about the difference between studying it at, oh, sorry. I was just thinking about the difference between studying it at GCSE and studying it at A-level. What the experience might be like.
I think you get to go into stuff in a lot more detail, and it also feels like just in the classroom, everyone really wants to be there and kind of say things. And you read the books and you get to learn not just about the books, but like the history and people and cultures that you just wouldn't have known about.
Yeah, like there's more scope for your own ideas as well. Like it's less sort of rigid and formulaic. And while there's still like formulas and ways to go about answers and stuff like that, it's much more like you can put your own ideas into it, rather than just like.
It's not as simple as GCSE. It's not simple. This is a metaphor. This is what it means. It's more like, let's have a debate about what we think that metaphor means and form our own argument about that. It just feels a lot more intellectual.
So I think GCSE is a really good basis for what you do at A-level. But I think some people, I think the way the exams are set up can feel a bit restrictive. And I think a lot of people when they start to study A-level, they feel really liberated and excited by the sort of ways we go about it and the sort of ways you might write an essay. Okay, I'm going to move on now, and I'm going to look at the texts that we actually study. Okay, I'm now just going to look at the content of English Literature A-level at Hills. We follow the Edexcel Pearson course. It's made of 3 examination papers and the non-examined assessment. The first paper, which constitutes 30% of the final mark, is a drama paper. We study 2 texts, Hamlet by Shakespeare and Waiting for Godot by Samuel Beckett, a 20th century play. In paper 2, the prose paper, you compare either Frankenstein by Mary Shelley and The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood, or Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf and Tess of the D'Urbervilles by Thomas Hardy. That will depend on which teacher you're allocated when you come to Hills. So some teachers prefer to teach Frankenstein and The Handmaid's Tale, others prefer Mrs. Dalloway and Tess of the D'Urbervilles. The third paper is a poetry paper. It's made up of 2 sections. The first section is a comparison of an unseen poem with a study poem that comes from an anthology called Poems of the Decade. This is an anthology of prize-winning poems, the Forward Prize, from the post-2000 era. So the first section is very much contemporary poetry, and then the second section is a detailed study of the Romantic poet John Keats. And then finally, the final 20% is made up of an independent long essay, 2,500 to 3,000 word essay that you do comparing Small Island with one of a number of texts which you're given independent resources to work on yourself. And you can make a choice from a very wide range of texts. So at the moment we're offering Brick Lane by Monica Ali, Dubliners by James Joyce, Translations by Brian Friel, Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston, and The Brief and Wondrous Life of Oscar Wilde by Junot Diaz. So there's a big range of different texts, and the broad theme is belonging, but we give you maybe 20, 25 different titles to choose from, and you can make your own selection of those second texts to compare to Small Island. So I wonder if the students would like to say anything about their experience of studying these different texts.
I mean, from what we've done so far, it's been really I don't know, it's been really interesting. It's definitely the kind of thing where you don't stay in one region or one era or like one set of ideas. Every text you look at, you come out from a completely different angle, and they all offer very different things.
Yeah, especially with Hamlet, there are so many different interpretations, which I never expected going into it, just how completely dense it is with all these different psychological views and philosophical views and historical context and everything like that.
As well as technical things.
Yeah, and it's quite political as well. It's just so interesting to have so many debates over just the language. And also I think I really enjoyed studying both the plays because they're so different and they come from such different eras. We've got one from 100 years ago, got one from 500 years ago, but they're also in some ways very similar.
Yeah, you find definite philosophical similarities or technical things like similar metaphors and stuff like that. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
Lovely, thank you very much. Okay, we're going to move on to comparisons with the other English courses that we offer in the department. All the English courses that we offer here are excellent. Obviously, I'm here to sell you English literature. The thing to know about English literature is that obviously there are more texts to study in this course. For English language and literature, you only study 4 texts. There's a focus on 20th century writing, and you do non-fiction alongside poetry, drama and prose. And there is an opportunity to write creatively. Now, although there is no formal assessment of creative writing in the English literature course, it's something that we do really encourage. We encourage people to think about their own writing and to develop it. It's also, I think it's widely thought that the best preparation for your own creative writing is really familiarity with the broad corpus of English literature. You will. It's also different from English language in that it's based on fiction, poetry and drama rather than non-fiction texts. I just wonder, Hera, you came to English literature late. I wonder if you'd like to just comment on what was good about the particular course that we're studying.
Oh, well, one thing is that, like, I mean, I caught up pretty quickly, but I think a definite part of it is like, as much as you can do in class, you can also read stuff by yourself, and it feels very much like not the kind of thing where you think, oh no, I'm behind on facts. It's like you can sort of squeeze out of the texts what you like, whatever the effort you put into it, you get more out. And so, like, I don't know, from joining late, I just like sank my teeth into it and got on with it. And it's really like, yeah, there's just a lot to get out of it once you start. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Okay, the skills that you gain in English literature, well, in a way, there are a lot of soft skills that you gain that perhaps are harder to put your finger on, but you certainly learn how to form an argument in essays. You learn about detailed textual analysis, what we call overstanding rather than understanding, that sense of what's going on under the text, the subtext of any writing. You learn about the relationship between texts and their contexts, both thinking about us as readers, where we come from and what sort of interpretations we bring, and what the authors would have been thinking about, how they would have approached the world when they were creating these texts. You also learn about how to compare texts and how different people have interpreted them. So, for instance, you might look, as we've talked about, from psychoanalytic perspectives. So you might look at it from feminist, Marxist or post-colonial perspectives, but also how readings of text have changed over time, whether from, for instance, how the Romantics might have read Shakespeare, or how what's called new criticism might have approached poetry of Keats. You also learn how to work both independently and collaboratively. There's a lot of group work, a lot of looking at a passage together, and essentially it's about how to explore fascinating ideas in a way that isn't constrained by dogma. You're not having to constrain yourself through ideas about logic or particular perspectives. You're really free to approach learning and ideas in a very liberated way. In terms of assessment, there are 6 key assessment points each year. So we set a couple of essays for each text that we study, and we also build towards a mock exam at the end of year 12 and then around Christmas time in year 13. All of that, you'll get a lot of scaffolding and modelling. You'll be given lots of preparation, lots of help. If you have any doubts or any worries about it, then your teachers will be very, very happy to give you lots of support. We also build up to the essays by asking you to write paragraphs, and those might be either self-assessed or peer-assessed. You get lots of feedback from your teachers, both verbally and in written feedback, and you'll also be given plenty of opportunities for reflection, evaluation, and trying to rewrite bits that you feel you didn't do as well as you could have. There's always support in the English media and film department, both in class from your teachers. There's a process whereby we help you to make your transition into the A-level subject. Also, you'll be encouraged to seek support from your peer group, and there are plus sessions if you feel either you want to develop some skills or you feel that you might be falling behind in one place or other. You can join in with groups that are run either on Teams or in lunchtimes to help support your learning. And we also give extra support for university applications and for Oxbridge. In terms of extension and enrichment, obviously it's been a difficult time with the pandemic, but traditionally we have had many visiting speakers come to the college. In the past we've had lecturers from a variety of universities, people who are prominent in their field. We have trips to readings and to other literary events, and we work with both Cambridge University and other HE providers to give you an experience of what English is like at university. We also are always publishing reading lists and viewing lists, encouraging you to look around the subject, read around the subject, and there's lots of support at the library. in terms of supporting the subject and different ways of accessing support materials. And we also encourage applications for competitions, writing and that sort of thing. The student performance in the college is very strong. As you can see, it's 80% A star to B, which is significantly higher than the national average, and 100% A star to E. So students in English literature do very well, and then they go on mostly to study in higher education. Some go on to employment, apprenticeships and further education, but the vast majority will go on to higher education, many to do English literature degrees. Often people who haven't necessarily been considering English literature become very excited by the study of it at A-level and consider doing it as their university course. Because it is, as I've been saying, it's quite a liberating, exciting course to study. It really does engage your heart as well as your mind, I think. Okay, I'm going to leave it there, but I'm going to pass over just for any last concluding comments from the students. Anything you'd like to add about your experience of English?
I definitely think, so I want to do English at university. I'm not sure I would have done before. I almost feel like in the lessons, talking to all these other people, you feel almost like you know less, but in a good way. Like you feel like there's so much more to find out, and it's a lot. The subject's really deep, and it might not necessarily appear that just from reading the book, but you can go so much further into it.
Yeah, I definitely say with English, like keep an open mind when you're studying it, because it's such a great subject for that. It's not just fact, it's so much more than that. You know, listen to your classmates and listen to what everyone else has to say, because there are so many more ideas and narratives to explore that you might not have thought of yourself. And also, don't be afraid to share your own ideas and arguments, however, I know, radical or far-fetched you think they might be.
You get somewhere.
Yeah, that's how you get somewhere, and any discussion is always really welcome. So it's really exciting in that way.
Yeah. Also, it's just fun. Like it's like the lessons are really fun to be in. Everyone's like chatting with each other about the text, and it's a fun subject to do.
Yeah.
Brilliant, thank you. And I suppose it's worth adding that we're a very experienced department. We've all been teaching for sort of 20 plus years. Many of us have had experience of university teaching as well as teaching in other places like schools. So it's a department that's got a lot of experience, a lot of intellectual interest, and we hope that we can share the passion that we all feel about literature with the students. And I hope that you've felt that from hearing the students speak. So thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed that. If you have any questions, please do feel free to get in touch with us. Okay, thank you very much.